There is a single company that controls the entire military industrial complex, the whole food industry, the oil and energy sectors, every plane, train, and most cars in America. They own the water utility companies, the hospitals, and the funeral homes. This one company that controls just about every other company and corporation in the Western world. And today, I'm going to show you with publicly available open source information that's easy to find for yourself who this is and how we know it. We are, of course, talking about the Blackrock conspiracy. It's one of the most widely known and also widely misunderstood conspiracies of our day. So today, we're going to unpack the real Blackrock conspiracy. What do we really mean when we say that BlackRock owns everything? I've been doing this research for about 2 years now, and I think it's finally time to put it all together into one long-form video and lay out the whole thing and unpack who really owns the world.
Conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
It's so sacred we can't talk about it.
So it was about 2 years ago on a Sunday that I was walking through my local supermarket thinking about how I just learned that tampons are full of endocrine disruptors and reprotoxic chemicals. I just started a TikTok account 2 months prior dedicated to researching and learning about how the world works, and I had just done a report on tampons. And it's insane. Somehow it's just accepted medical practice of today that once a month for several days, women just stick a chemical soaked sponge into one of the most sensitive mucous membranes on their bodies, right next to their uterus and ovaries and all that. They basically inject themselves with a whole cocktail of chemicals well known to damage reproductive organs and dysregulate hormones and cause cancer. Researchers found glyphosate at 40 times the legal limit for drinking water. They found arsenic, lead, cobalt, mercury, and cadmium, among many other chemicals and heavy metals. My comments on the last video that I had made about the topic were flooded with stories of women saying that when they switched to organic cotton tampons or to Diva cups, their periods became way less painful, way less intense, basically overnight. And then, of course, there was a bunch of free bleeders just getting wild in there too. It was total anarchy. But I'm in the grocery store and I have this epiphany that seems really simple to me now. Like, I wonder if there are any organic cotton tampons in this grocery store. So I go to the tampon aisle and I take some photos of the selection available. And little did I know that those tampons, these ones right here, would change my life. Like, no joke, that tampon aisle quite directly led to me going on Joe Rogan and hosting the Candace Owens show and sitting here now talking to you. God works in mysterious ways. Because I discovered what we all already kind of know is that in most grocery stores, there's actually very little choice. Even when it looks like there are so many different brands to choose from, of the whole tampon section in that store, maybe 5% or less of the shelf space was devoted to organic, natural cotton tampons that didn't have poison in them. They were hidden way off in the corner out of sight. That's the blue section way over on the right. The bulk of the aisles was colorful boxes from all the big brands advertising Sport Fit and Freedom Flow and Comfort Care and just all sorts of made-up menstrual buzzwords. Colored here in red, orange, yellow, and pink. But turn the packages around and read the ingredients, and they're all the exact same product. A synthetic plastic-filled franking cloth with PFAS and bleach and other toxic chemicals laced all throughout. Just kidding. You actually can't read the ingredients because tampons aren't required to list their ingredients on the box. So trust the science, right? But you have dozens of choices of size and fit and flex and just about anything else except whether or not you want to poison your reproductive organs and disrupt your hormones. That option came in a tiny blue box hidden way up high in one little obscure corner. And if I had to guess, I would think that it probably accounts for less than 1% of the grocery store's tampon sales. I even discovered that one of the brands, Stay Free, which is highlighted here in pink, is owned by Energizer, the battery company. I'm serious. This happened all the way back in 2013, and I'll bet that basically no woman that buys Stay Free knows that she's buying from a battery company. Like, they should make their sizing named after battery sizes if they're going to do that. Like, you can just get your AAAs or your AA's or your super extra heavy flow D battery. I mean, tampons. Anyways, once I looked up who owned all the mega corporations that were selling these tampons, I learned that they're all owned by the same shadowy financial cabal, foreshadowing the first layer of the Blackrock conspiracy theory. And we'll get into the whole thing in just a minute. And yes, for all the finance bros out there, don't worry. We know about beneficial ownership and what fund managers do. That is a part of this story. And for everyone jumping out of their chairs to say like BlackRock doesn't actually own any of those shares, don't worry. We will get to that layer in just a bit. But first, I became obsessed and I started doing this in every aisle of the grocery store, coloring in which colors, which items on the shelves were owned by the general mega corporate blob and which ones were founder and family owned, etc. I did shampoo and deodorant and baby food, and I found out that some aisles are even worse than the tampon aisle. There are plenty of aisles in your grocery store where every single option is owned by the same singular mega corporate mass of just banker money. It's not just BlackRock. There's a whole rabbit hole that we're about to go down. But for example, the shampoo aisle at Target. To this day, it's probably my most viral video ever. There are whole aisles at Target where every single product is sold to you by the same bankers. And a bunch of these shampoos and conditioners are in class action lawsuits for causing hair loss. And one even faced accusations for making people's hair catch on fire. That's a true story. You can look it up. Those very same companies, though, they market hair regrowth products right there in the same aisle from the same company. Problem, solution. Baby food and baby formula was even worse because not only are there entire grocery stores where your only options are all owned by the same banking money black hole, but then I discovered this report written by the House Oversight Committee about toxic heavy metals in baby food, featuring all the brands that I had just been researching in the baby food aisle, because all of these brands that are featured in this report were the ones owned by the banking cartel mega corporations. There were way too many messed up findings in the report to cover them all here. And I would say that you should go find this report for yourself, but when I was getting ready for this video and checked back in on this report, it had been mysteriously taken down off of the government site where it had been hosted. So it's kind of weird. You can probably go find it on archive.org though, I would imagine. But just to give a summary, the report lists levels of various heavy metals that were determined by the FDA to be acceptable in food products. And then it goes on to say, quote, the test results of baby foods and their ingredients eclipse those levels, including results up to 91 times the arsenic level, up to 177 times the lead level, up to 69 times the cadmium level, and up to 5 times the mercury level. As in, yeah, you are reading that correctly. Some of these baby foods were testing at 177 times the acceptable level of lead in baby food. Not 177%, 177 times. That is 17,700% the legal limit of lead in baby food. And we wonder why we have a chronic disease epidemic. This is in the baby food, folks. It's babies. It's not even the regular food. But I didn't stop there. I looked up everything from detergent to cereal. Remember, colored in red means it's owned by the same banking cartel, most notably BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street. We'll get to that in just a minute. I did sauces, ice cream, dressings. Some types of products had more variety than others. Some aisles had a lot of family and founder-owned brands to choose from. But in the end, you start to realize what many of us all already kind of know, but have never quite visualized. All of our abundance, all of our foods and drinks and soaps and lotions, everything else. Thousands and thousands of brands to choose from, but it's actually all owned by just a handful of mega corporations. And now this is where we peel back the next layer of the onion. Because if you wanted to know who owns any given product, like say Hidden Valley Ranch dressing, which is one of my favorite examples, you can search that on the internet for yourself. This is what I was doing for every single product on those grocery store aisle shelves, and it took forever. So you search that, and you'll find out that Clorox owns Hidden Valley Ranch dressing, which is a bit alarming and not exactly what you were probably hoping to find. And notice that this is old news too. Clorox acquired Hidden Valley Ranch in 1972. They've been making the ranch since before most of you were born. But then the inquisitive mind might ask, who owns Clorox? And the answer is that Clorox is a publicly traded company. I like to call it a mega corporation, but it just means that they sell shares and your finance bro buddy on Wall Street Bets can YOLO his fat bag into the stock and hope it goes to the moon. And this means that Clorox is owned by its shareholders. So, who are these shareholders? If you want to know who owns a public company like Clorox, the phrase you need to search for is institutional ownership. Because while your buddy who trolls Wall Street Bets for the next short squeeze might be able to buy some shares, he's really just a tiny little germ compared to the big boys, the banks. So you're looking for the top institutional shareholders. And for Clorox, it's all these guys. Vanguard, Blackrock, State Street, Geode Capital Management, Morgan Stanley, FMR is Fidelity, Stifel Financial Corporation, they're not a common one, Citadel Advisors, Royal Bank of Canada, Champlain Investment Partners, LLC. Collectively, just quick math, looks like these top 10 owners collectively own about 35% of the company. And that's pretty typical. The more of this research you do, the more you realize that these sheets always seem to look the same. Dave's Killer Bread, not owned by Dave. Sorry, it was bought by Flowers Foods, a mega corporation. And they're owned by Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street, plus a bunch of banks and fund managers. General Mills, JP Morgan, Norfolk Southern, American Waterworks, top owners, Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street, highlighted in red, plus all the banks and financial institutions and investment firms making up the rest of the lists. You start looking at entire industries, and you realize that the same is true for all of the biggest corporations in every industry, like food and beverage, banking, big tech. Each of those images collaged together is an individual ownership sheet like the ones we were just looking at for Clorox, and highlighted in red on each sheet are Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street, almost always the top 3 spots, i.e. the top 3 shareholders. The same is true for the oil industry and for the green energy industry, even literally for hospice, funeral care, and cemetery homes. They're buying those too. Because if you're going to make money poisoning people right out the gate in the baby food, I mean, why not also make money when they die, right? So, as I did all this research across basically every industry in the economy, I found the same major thing over and over and over again. It's a big club, and we are not in it. So naturally, I got curious just how much of the stock market of all the publicly traded companies do BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street actually own? Like, how big is their share or slice of the pie? So I took the top 100 companies on the US market, companies that you're very familiar with, like Tesla, Pfizer, Starbucks, Verizon, Lockheed Martin, Home Depot, normal companies, the big ones, the top 100. And I built a giant spreadsheet that scraped their stock ownership information live off the web and into my charts. And then I used all that data to build this sheet showing what percentage of the top 100 companies in America are owned by each of these investment firms, banks, and billionaires. And even though I had already been doing this research for months, this kind of shocked me. Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street combined represent more than $5 trillion invested in the top 100 companies. On the right of this chart, you can see that collectively, that represents 42.2% of all the shares of ownership in the top 100 companies. If you expand your scope to the 25 biggest financial institutions, they collectively own 83% of the shares. 83%. This is just the top 25 biggest financial institutions. There are hundreds of them above us on these lists. So now, it's important to slow down and explain what a share actually is. Like, what does it represent? What does it mean? Because a lot of us think of shares of stock as something nebulous, like a form of gambling for white guys in suits, and kind of, but a share is way more than that. A share is a share of ownership of a company, and it's a share of the voting rights for how that company is run. Because in a sick way, all of these companies are actually run democratically, except that you buy your votes. Like, the more shares you own, the more votes you get. So if you own 10% of the shares, you get 10% of the voting rights. It's actually pretty simple. You don't vote on every tiny little thing the company is going to do, like what color the packaging will be or how many Cheerios go into a box, but you vote on the big things, like major policies that the company is going to adopt or reject. Shareholders can introduce their own items for voting. In the 2010s, one of the most popular ones were like various versions of sustainability initiatives like eco-friendly packaging, zero emission commitments, stuff like that. Almost every company in the American market was voting on those sorts of initiatives over the last decade, and there is a reason why that we will get to. But most importantly, shareholders vote on who will sit on the board of directors, and they are the ones that guide the company and hire and fire the executives that actually run the company on the day-to-day, like the CEO, CFO, COO. It's a lot of C names. Those guys are called the C-suite because they're all chiefs, you know? So they, the C-suite, are hired and fired by the board of directors, who we elect with our shared voting rights. And all of this is determined by shareholder voting. The more shares you own, the more votes you get. You see where this is going yet?
Conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
It's so sacred we can't talk about it.
Our security is at stake.